Hey, hello and welcome to using the National Library of Scotland for your dissertation. My name's Lucy and I work for Reference Services at the library. So my job is to answer readers' inquiries from people in the library and remotely, and also to hand out books and help people access the collection. So if you ever come and visit the library, it'll be me or one of my colleagues handing over your books. So today I am going to talk to you, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the background of the National Library of Scotland, and then we're going to talk a bit about some of the more unusual items in the collections, and then we're going to move on to the resources which will be most helpful in using your dissertation. So we're going to particularly focus on the online resources because we're obviously still closed because of COVID. So after that, I'll just tell you a little bit of practical information about using the library, and then we'll have some question and answers. So there's a little Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If a question pops into your head at any point during the presentation, just type it in and I'll answer them all at the end. We also, I think, will be recording this, but none of you will be visible. The slides will be circulated at the end, so you don't need to worry about taking notes or anything. There's links in all the slides, and you don't need to try and write them all out because these will be sent around by the organisers through the uni. So you'll be able to access all the links and stuff included through those. Okay, so I think it's 1:10, so I'll just get started. So the National Library of Scotland is Scotland's only legal deposit library and one of 5 in the UK. It originated with the founding of the Advocates Library in the 1680s and was given the legal right to claim a copy of every book published in the British Isles in 1710. So that right to claim one copy of everything, that's what we mean when we say legal deposit. So the British Library also has that, the National Library of Wales, the National Library of Ireland, and that's why the collections of those libraries are quite big. So by the 1920s, the collection was so big that it couldn't be managed by the Faculty of Advocates anymore, and the National Library of Scotland was created by a 1925 Act of Parliament. The main building on George IV Bridge was completed in 1956, and that is where we are based today. So now I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our physical collections. So we are home to over 25 million items. We never get rid of anything. That's part of the purpose of a legal deposit library, is to retain one copy. Our purpose is to retain one copy of everything that's relevant to Scotland that's published within the UK. So that's why our collection is so huge, because we take one of everything and we never get rid of anything. So we've got over 75 miles of shelving, and our book fetchers can walk up to 10 miles a day on a busy day. On average, we receive around 6,000 new items a week, which totals about 320,000 a year. So our collection is always growing at a really fast rate. More and more, we're now starting to receive items digitally as part of the non-print legal deposit scheme. So non-print legal deposit collections are things like ebooks or journals, which can only be accessed in the library on a library PC because of copyright restrictions. So our collections include over 16 million printed items and 25,000 newspapers and magazines. We also hold 2.5 million maps and over 100,000 collections of manuscripts. Our oldest printed item is an 8th century Buddhist prayer scroll in a pagoda-shaped case. And our oldest printed book is the Gutenberg Bible, which was printed in Germany in 1455. So this was the first book printed in Europe with movable type, and ours is one of only about 20 surviving copies. We also hold a lot of really unusual items, like this collection of Shakespeare's plays in miniature. Each volume is only 6 centimetres high, and they are stored in this little oak cabinet that was designed to hang on your wall. They were printed in Glasgow in 1904, and this was kind of like a trendy thing that the Edwardians, late Victorians, liked to have. So our smallest book in the whole collection is an 1885 edition of Old King Cole, which measures 1 millimetre by 1 millimetre. Which is smaller than your fingernail. So when I was writing this presentation, I had to go and check that it was really 1 millimetre, because that sounds unrealistically small, but it really is that small. We also hold a lot of unique historic manuscripts, like the last letter of Mary, Queen of Scots, which was written 6 hours before her execution in 1587. We also hold a document containing the order for the infamous massacre of Glencoe in 1692, and loads of other really unique historical manuscripts. As well as manuscripts, rare books, and historical artifacts, we also hold millions of more recent publications covering all disciplines. The range of the collections is so enormous that there's definitely something relevant to your dissertation in the library. So I have tended to focus a bit more on history resources in this. That's just because that's the thing that I know the most about, but there is really like resources online and physically in the library that are relevant to every subject area. So we have extensive digital collections, which can be accessed from our website, nls.uk, and I'm going to spend a bit more time talking about these today because obviously we are still closed, and even once we open, I'm sure people are more sort of leaning even more towards online ways of working now. So our digital gallery includes images of out-of-copyright items that are held by the National Library of Scotland. So these include things like 18th and 19th century chapbooks, which were these cheap little booklets that were sold on the street that included it was like popular literature, histories and ballads. They were sold cheaply to ordinary people. We have some late medieval and early modern Scottish manuscripts, Scottish post office directories, which have lists of trades and addresses and stuff. We've got an Encyclopedia Britannica from the 1700s, which is fully digitized, and a collection of Soviet posters from just after the Russian Revolution. There's tons more on the digital gallery. I would really recommend having a look. It is available anywhere in the world from home, so you don't have to be a member of the library, you don't have to live in Scotland. You can just go online on our website and get straight onto the digital gallery. So our maps website has over 200,000 high-resolution maps of Scotland and the world. You can search by place, by sort of era, by map maker, and it also has a georeference section where modern satellite images have been overlaid onto early OS maps, so you can see how the landscape and built environment has changed over time. The maps website can also be accessed anywhere without a membership. So yeah, you don't have to log in, and it doesn't matter where you live. So the same is the case for the Moving Image Archive website. This website has got over 2,000 clips and full-length films, which include documentary footage, home movies, and amateur films, and are really useful for social history and other stuff. The Moving Image Archive is based in Glasgow in our Kelvin Hall building, in the kind of Kelvin Hall complex. So if you live in Glasgow, or if not, it's obviously currently closed at the moment, but you can access film collections that haven't been digitized yet there. But you can also use the Kelvin Hall space to access things like e-resources and non-print legal deposit items, and also as a study space. So e-resources are digital resources which we subscribe to. So some of these can be accessed from home, some can only be accessed from the library premises. You do need to be a registered reader with a Scottish residential address to access e-resources. So open access e-resources can be accessed from home when you're logged into your library account. These include the records of the Parliament of Scotland from 1235 till the Union in 1707, The UK Web Archive, which is a searchable archive of websites from the last 15 years, many of which aren't available anywhere else online anymore. And also OpenText, which is another archive of over 8 million items from the National Libraries of Scotland and Wales, the Wellcome Collection, the Bodleian Libraries, and many other institutions. So password protected e-resources are resources which can also be accessed from home when logged into your library account, but may require you to create a separate account for the specific resource. So these include the Archives of Sexuality and Gender, which consists of 20 collections spanning the years 1940 to 2014, and amounts to over 1.5 million pages. We also have Caribbean newspapers from 1718 to 1876. So this includes over 66 newspaper titles from 22 different Caribbean islands, and it's a great primary source for the history of colonialism in the Caribbean. We also have early English books online, which contains 130,000 books printed between 1473 and 1700 in England, Ireland, Wales and Scotland, and British North America. India, Raj and Empire is a digital archive from our manuscript collection, which covers the history of South Asia under British rule, from the foundation of the East India Company in 1615 to independence and partition in 1947. So we also now have off-site access temporarily to the British Newspaper Archive, which is another great e-resource. It's a searchable archive of regional and national newspapers from the UK from about 1710 up to the 1950s. And it's usually on-site only, but for the duration of our closure, it's available off-site. So that's another really good resource. So on-site only e-resources can only be accessed on the library premises on a library PC. So they're obviously not accessible at the moment, but luckily there's only 13 of them. So the vast majority of our e-resources are accessible from home. So these include FAME, which is a detailed business database with information on over 11 million UK and Irish companies. The John Johnson collection of ephemera, which is came from the Bodleian Libraries, and it's a kind of archive of ephemera covering everyday British life from the 18th century to the early 20th century. We've also got the Legal Deposit Map portal, which allows you to search modern OS maps of Britain from 1998 to present. So as well as all these different e-resources that I've talked through, we have got tons of journal resources, which would be useful for dissertation writing. So stuff like JSTOR, Brill journals, Oxford journals, and Sage. So those are all really useful for dissertation work. So our digital scholarship service would love to hear from any students who are interested in text, data mining, data visualization, or other computational techniques. The service supports and facilitates digital humanities and data science researchers. On our Data Foundry website, you can find our collections in machine readable form with digitized material, metadata, spatial data, and more. An example data set is the first 8 editions of the Encyclopedia Britannica, which spans over 100 years. So if you've got any questions about this, feel free to pop them into the Q&A box. I won't be able to answer them because this is really not my area at all, but I will pass them on to our digital scholarship librarian, who'd love to hear from anyone that's got an interest in this kind of work. We've also got a number of talks and events available on our YouTube channel, as well as clips from the Moving Image Archive. And we share interesting items from our collections on our Twitter and Instagram, as well as information about upcoming events with the library. So if you want to stay up to date, you can give us a follow. Okay. So, although the library is closed because of COVID restrictions, we are looking forward to hopefully welcoming readers back at some point in 2021. You can still join the library even though we are closed. This will give you access to e-resources and it will enable you to come and visit once we've reopened. You should keep an eye on our service disruption page for news about reopening. This will be updated as soon as there's any word. Obviously, that's dependent on the Scottish Government restrictions. Once we reopen, our website will be updated with details of how to book a slot to visit. There isn't normally, before COVID, you could just walk into the library and join and like sit down at a desk, but since social distancing came into place, we are now operating a booking system, which will hopefully be temporary, but probably operating for the foreseeable future. So once we do reopen, the booking system will appear on the website and our catalogue will be sort of like reawoken and you'll be able to order books. So at the moment you can still search to see if there's anything, to see if we've got the books that you want, but you can't order anything until we reopen. So when you do eventually come to the library, we have got 4 different reading rooms. The general reading room is in our George IV Bridge building, and it's the largest and most commonly used. So this is the reading room for consulting all items printed after 1850, which are not dealt with by a specialist reading room. It's a silent workspace over 2 levels, and it has open access computers, laptop-free areas, and newspaper tables. Just next to the general reading room, we have the multimedia room, which is also in George IV Bridge and contains things like PCs, microfilm readers, and even a VHS player. It also has accessibility software for readers with visual impairments and learning disabilities. The Special Collections reading room is also in our George IV Bridge building, and it's where rare books, music, manuscripts, and items printed before 1850 are consulted. So the Maps reading room, our 4th reading room, is in a separate building, which is our Causeway Side building, where we store collections that don't fit into George IV Bridge. So it's used to consult maps, atlases, and gazetteers, and can only be visited by appointment, even out with COVID. So again, if you're based in Glasgow, you can also access e-resources and non-print legal deposit items at the Moving Image Archive at Kelvin Hall, but you can't actually, or you can't order books to there. So you can use the general reading room, the multimedia room, and Kelvin Hall as a study space without ordering anything. But if you want to use a Special Collections reading room or maps, you do need to order something from the collections because they're so limited in terms of space that they can only really offer a service to people who are needing to consult the collections. So we do have a lot of stairs in our George IV Bridge building, but we can cater for readers with mobility issues. Just get in touch with us prior to your visit to let us know if you've got any special requirements. So images from our collections can be used in essays, dissertations, and presentations. We offer a range of copying services, which are limited at the moment, but will expand again as soon as we reopen, from photographic quality prints to high resolution digital images. If you visit the library yourself, you can capture material on your phone, your tablet, or a small digital camera. We just don't allow long lens cameras in the reading rooms. The website provides information on copyright and data protection to support reuse, and although most of our digitised collections are openly available for reuse, we are working to make our collections more freely and easily reusable. So if you have any questions at all, you just pop them in the Q&A box just now, but if you come up with something a couple of days later and you wish that you'd asked, you can just get in touch with us. You can use our website, nls.uk. You can email inquiries@nls.uk, or you can use our Ask a Question service via a form on our website. We've also got an instant chat service, so that runs from 10 till 4 Monday to Friday, and all you have to do is go on the website, type a little question into the box, and then me or one of my colleagues will get straight back to you. That tends to be for slightly more smaller inquiries. So finally, I think that the uni would appreciate some feedback on this dissertation festival event. So when these slides are distributed, it would be great if you could fill in this survey using the link in this slide. So that's my presentation. So now I am just going to answer any questions that have come in. Okay. Okay, so I think my colleague is gonna...
Hi, Lucy.
Hi, yeah, so this is my colleague Tara, who is gonna help me go through the questions and answer them.
So we just had 2 questions about sharing the recording and the slides. So just to clarify that we'll be sharing both to all the attendees.
Yeah, so I'm going to pass these on. The recording might take a little longer because you have to subtitle it. Like you have to proofread the subtitles because sometimes they don't make sense. So that might take a little longer, but I'm going to share that with one of the organisers through the uni, and then she's going to distribute that to everyone who attended the event.
We've had another question. Is the well, just to clarify, the library is digitally available to its members just for now?
Yes, yes. So everything on our website, apart from the only thing that I've talked about today that isn't available at the moment, that's digital, is the e-resources that can only be accessed on site. So that's only 13 of them, of the sort of 100 odd e-resources that we've got. But yeah, the website is still fully up and running. All the sort of digital collections and stuff totally accessible. It's just that you can't access any physical collections and can't access non-print legal deposit. So those are like ebooks and journals that can only be viewed on site at the library because of copyright restrictions. But the vast majority of what we've talked about today is all accessible at the moment. Yeah, so is there any other questions?
I've got another question. How do I register, and do I need a library card?
Yeah, so registering is really easy. You just go onto our website and there's a big orange button in the corner that says join. If you click on that, all you need to do is put in your name, your address and your email address. And you do need a library card to visit the library, but you don't need a library card to use the website. So you also can't get a library card while the library is shut. So if you register just now, all you need to do is the first time you want to actually physically visit the library, you can bring in some proof of ID and proof of address and go to the front desk and they'll get you a little card. So yeah, you can register now. It's easy. There's also a link in these slides which will be distributed. Yeah.
We have another question. I'm struggling to find material for my dissertation. Can I ask the library to help?
Yes, yeah, you can. So we can't do, this is what the inquiry service does, and we can't do research for you, but we can like point you in the right direction and highlight resources that you might not have known about and just sort of like show you around the collections almost. So any questions at all, just get in touch with us, like at inquiries@nls.uk. There's like, people are surprised that we run this free service where we just answer people's questions, but we can give you quite a lot of help. Like, we're obviously not going to write any essays for you, but we can point you to resources that might be useful and that you might not have known about.
And we have another question. I also wanted to know, what does books can be ordered mean? I saw this in one of the slides. I guess that's important to mention about us being a reference library.
Yeah, so yeah, normally when I give a presentation like this, I'll talk about like how the library works in terms of actually getting books, but I got rid of that because we're shut, but you do still need to know. So because we've got such a massive collection, we're not like a normal library in the sense that you don't just come up to someone and say, I want this book, and then they go and find it for you, or you go and find it yourself. Because our collections are so enormous, we have a whole team dedicated to finding books called book fetchers. And so the way it works is you order a book via our online catalogue, and then a couple of hours later it turns up in a delivery. And then you get an email saying your book's at the desk and you come and collect it. So normally before COVID, we had a sort of, we had about 12 deliveries a day, but we've been running a vastly reduced service in the time that we have been open, which I think, like, when we were open, we were getting about 1 delivery a day. So when we reopen, something that's really worth keeping in mind is you'll want to pre-order any books you want before you come to visit. So it's worth going on to the website a couple of days before you're coming in, finding the books that you want and ordering them so they're all ready and waiting for you when you get to the library, because we can't just run downstairs and get something for you because it's just too big to do that. Yeah, so that's what the books being ordered means. Sorry, I should have worded that better.
Okay, we have one more question. I'm currently living in Cambridge, but do I go to Edinburgh? But I do go to Edinburgh. Oh, sorry, I'm not quite sure I understand that sentence. But anyway, they're asking, can I still have a library card despite being from Cambridge, or so should I register with my Cambridge address or my Edinburgh address? Sorry, hope that makes sense from me.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I think I get that. So yeah, you can definitely still get a library card. Like, we have readers who live in America who have a library card, who had just been in Edinburgh for one summer, stuff like that. So anyone in the world can join and get a library card if they actually come to the library. If you have an address in Edinburgh, I assume that you're just staying at home because of the pandemic, and when things loosen up a bit, you'll be based back in Edinburgh for your study. So I would use your Edinburgh address, because then you'll have access to e-resources. If you use your English address, you won't. So that's what I would suggest doing. Yeah. Yeah. Are there any more questions, or is that the lot?
I think that's everything, Lucy.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks very much. I hope that was useful to you all. And yeah, we'll distribute our recording and these slides in a couple of days, I think. Yeah, thank you for coming and listening, and bye.